Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I like to cover stories like the one I have for you today because these types of stories remind us women can be dangerous too. And not only can women be dangerous, there is a breed of women that can be deadly when they don't get what they want. Today we are talking about a woman who was once a ballerina. This case has been fascinating to me as a former dancer and dance studio owner and dance teacher. I don't think most people are aware of what it takes to become a professional ballerina. Now, the person at the heart of today's story was not a professional ballerina, but she was a solid dancer. To become a professional ballerina, not only do you have to have incredible physical strength and resiliency, you must have the toughest of minds and the most disciplined lifestyle. There's a famous quote, I can never remember exactly who said it. It talks about ballerinas being made up of only 1% of all humanity and only astronauts being more carefully chosen for their physical attributes. Ballerinas are born. Yes, they are made, but you cannot take someone that does not have the build and the talent and turn them into a ballerina. It just cannot happen. The same way you cannot take someone tone deaf and turn them into a good singer. Ballerinas must be the perfect height, the perfect weight. They must have the right bone structure, hip width, things you simply cannot change about yourself. But even those who are born with the physical attributes necessary to become a ballerina might not have the talent or the mental toughness that is required of these artists. There is a quote that talks about how ballet is not really an art. It's actually a science with an art precariously balanced at the top. The people who dedicate their lives to ballet are a breed all their own. They are competitive, they are driven, and many times they can be narcissistic. The ballerina we are talking about today is actually dangerous. This is the story of the murder of Doug Benefield, the story of the Black Swan Murder. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. First off, I don't like that the media is calling this case the Black Swan Murder, because that implies that Ashley Benefield, the woman who is accused of this murder, played the role of the Black Swan, which is a very, very prestigious role in ballet, and she never did. She wasn't ever even a professional dancer. She was in a youth ballet. She never played the part of the Black Swan and probably never would. She did not have the talent. I looked everywhere for a video of Ashley dancing. I found a video used on a 48 Hours episode of a woman dancing that kind of looks like Ashley, but nobody else has used that clip and I couldn't verify that it was her. The dancer in that video is very good. So I have a hard time believing that it's Ashley because these are the only photos I could find of Ashley, and these are not professional ballerina photos. The poses are not advanced. The positions are not correct. This is something I would expect of perhaps a 14-year-old girl. Everything I said to you in the intro about what it takes to be a ballerina, the mental toughness, the talent, the discipline, Ashley Byers didn't really have what it took. I know that sounds like a harsh judgment, but if you think it's harsh, look into the world of ballet. It is a harsh world. I can look at these photos and I can tell you this is not an incredible dancer. I know that sounds mean, but in ballet, you are judged on immediate appearances and you are judged very harshly on every little detail of your body when posing for a photo in a dance position. And I will tell you, I can see that Ashley Byers does have some training, but she was by no means a prima ballerina. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. I did not hear about this case through the true crime community. I did not hear about this case because of the murder that eventually takes place. I heard about this case years and years ago because it was a huge scandal in the dance community. Years ago, there were these rumors that a woman was starting a ballet company. She gathered all these dancers, she moved them to Charleston, South Carolina, and then the whole thing turned into a big mess. We're going to get into the details of that. But I've been aware of this woman and her interesting ways of operating in the ballet community for a very long time. First, we're going to talk about the people involved in this story, and then we will talk about the scandal that became a really, really big deal in the dance world. This story was actually featured in Dance Magazine, which is, the magazine in the industry. I believe it was featured more than once. This is not a magazine that focuses on scandal. It's a very lighthearted magazine that focuses on art, new products, helpful articles for dancers, stretching, that sort of thing. But what Ashley Byers did in the dance world, well, she made waves, to put it mildly. By 2016, Ashley's ballet career was over. She claims she had an injury in her early 20s that led her to retire. I'm going to take a stab and say that she probably just wasn't cutting it. And again, I'm using these only photos that I could find for reference as to that opinion. Later in my research process, I found out I'm pretty confident in saying I'm correct. Ashley never danced professionally. She was the member of a youth ballet company, so her dance career was over with when she was very young. She decided she wanted to get into politics, and in 2016, she joined Donald Trump's election campaign as a staffer. While she was working for that campaign, she attended a fundraiser at Dr. Ben Carson's home, and at that party, she met this man, 54-year-old Doug Benefield, a businessman and former Navy flight officer. Doug was 30 years older than Ashley. You know what's funny? In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to bring you a few stories where there's this huge age difference. I didn't pick those for any specific reason. There's just a lot going on right now where there's a big age difference in the couples. Ashley and Doug were taken with each other. They began talking at this fundraiser, and they would later say that they bonded over their faith in Jesus, their love of Jesus, and their love of guns and very far right-wing politics. Ashley was carrying a gun in her bra that night at the fundraiser, and she pulled it out and showed it to Doug. And he really liked this for some reason. Ashley would later say, "It just seemed like I had met my soulmate. We were the perfect match. He kind of swept me off my feet. It was a whirlwind." Whirlwind is one way to put it. Tornado is another. Ashley and Doug got married 13 days after meeting each other. That's a 1 and a 3, 13. So obviously we have two incredibly stable, well-balanced, very grounded people here whose lives were definitely not at all chaotic or crazy. Doug Benefield has a daughter named Eva, who was then 14 years old. Eva was from Doug's first marriage. Her mother, Renee Benefield, had died 9 months earlier from an undiagnosed heart condition. So at this point in time, it was just Doug and Eva, and then he brought Ashley into their lives. Ashley said that at first, Doug was very loving and attentive. She said they laughed a lot and that Doug made her feel very special. But the wedding was small. So small that Doug did not even invite his teenage daughter. Eva wasn't even told about the marriage. She found out later about the marriage on social media because one of her relatives posted something about it. And again, we are not dealing with two of the most stable or grounded people on the earth in this story. Eva was shocked to hear that her father had married this woman, not much older than she was, and that it was happening or had happened less than 2 weeks after meeting. Eva said that initially she tried to accept the marriage because she knew her dad was sad about losing his first wife, her mother, and that she wanted him to be happy and not be lonely. That, I feel, is very generous of her, considering he didn't even tell her about his marriage. Tommy Benefield, a cousin of Doug's, told 48 Hours, "It's bewildering. I would have talked him out of it. Eva certainly would have talked him out of it." And that, of course, you and I know, is why Doug didn't tell anyone he was getting married. Always remember, my friends, when people isolate themselves and push themselves away, cut you out, cut out the people who love them the most, it's because they're doing something that they know is not in their best interest. And the people who truly love and care about them are not going to like it. So they push those people away in order to isolate themselves and avoid being witnessed. They also don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. Try to keep that in mind if you are ever pushed away from someone you love dearly. Try to remember it's not always about you. A lot of the time it's about someone else. Now, if you're a toxic piece of crap, it is probably about you, but you just have to walk lightly and look at the situation from a distance. And a lot of times you'll realize it's not about you at all. Eva was still dealing with the trauma of losing her mom. She had walked into the family home to find her 56-year-old mother dead, so she had already been through a lot. Eva said after her mom died, her dad, Doug, made her a promise. Eva asked him, are you going to remarry? Are you going to start dating? Are you going to have other kids? What's going to happen? And Doug replied, no, Eva, I'm here for you. I don't plan on doing any of that. Then, surprise, he's remarried a few months later. I'm not saying don't move on. I'm saying don't move on with someone 30 years younger than you that you've known for 13 days. Doug tried to facilitate a relationship between Ashley and Eva, but it didn't work. There was only 9 years difference between the two of them. And I'm sorry, but I'm with Eva on this one. A 30-year age gap is a lot. Big age differences are a lot. They're a lot for kids to deal with. They're a lot for family members to deal with. It makes you question, what could two people this far apart in age have in common to talk about? I'm not saying May-December romances can never work on either side. I'm just saying, yeah, I've been doing this long enough to know you kind of go, Shortly after this very quick wedding, Ashley told Doug that she had this big dream. She wanted to start her own ballet company. Now, without getting into too much detail here, I will tell you this is a major undertaking. You need benefactors, you need housing, you need rehearsal space, you need a costume designer, you need lighting designers, you need music directors, you need teachers. It is major. But Doug was determined to help Ashley fulfill her dream. And in April of 2017, Ashley made a major announcement. She was starting the American National Ballet. The company announced it was accepting applications for company members, for dancers, and that the company would be based out of Charleston, South Carolina. That meant, of course, all the company members would be required to move to Charleston to begin rehearsals. Ashley quickly aligned herself with some major names in the ballet world, like Sarah Michelle Morawski and Jessica Sand. Right off the bat, when looking into the company, people could see that Ashley's ballet credentials personally were seriously lacking. She'd come from a youth ballet, not a professional company, but she promised to hire the best teachers and that the company would be a progressive company, hiring dancers of different body types and races. Yes, that's actually considered progressive in the ballet world, which is still very, very white, and everyone has the exact same body type, 10-year-old boy. The ballet world is still very much a coffee and cigarettes, 87 to 95 pound, perfect body shape, perfect body type world. So Ashley and Doug begin to gather dancers in South Carolina. And at first, it looks like things might go well. The company was supposed to have 50 company members, and that's a lot. I would say for a small company that's just starting out, you may start with 25 to 30 dancers and do a very small ballet for your first production and then build from there. Starting out with 50 members, it's not unheard of, but that's a lot of dancers. A woman named Beth Bogush was hired as the company's COO and director, and she very quickly realized the funding was just not there. By the fall of 2017, the ballet company was in shambles. Dancers were posting videos online about how they had not been paid. They'd moved across the country or from other countries to join this company, and they'd been hired to be a part of it. They were broke, and all they'd been offered was free classes at the studio, which, as part of a company, isn't something they'd be paying for anyway. On Monday, October 16th, 2017, 7 Corps de Ballet members and 10 second company members were laid off. Corps de Ballet members are the supporting cast in a ballet. And the second company, that's the stand-ins. Those are the people that learn the roles for other people in the first company in case one of those dancers gets injured or is sick that night. You have to have backup dancers. Again, this is a very expensive endeavor. Beth Bogusch later told Dance Magazine, the company was formed with a large amount of dancers, but some of the commitments for funding fell through very quickly. She also told the magazine that the dance company was going to merge with another company and that the announcement would be made in a few weeks. The day after that, the principal dancer, Sarah Michelle Morawski, posted her letter of resignation from the ballet company on her social media. Vanity Fair then picked up what was going on and did an article on the entire mess. The article printed by that publication stated that Ashley Benefield claimed to have an annual budget of $2.5 million set aside to pay for the first 5 years of the company, and that all of the dancers had been given 8-month contracts that included health insurance and housing allowances. I mean, this is the dream gig for a ballet dancer. Some of the dancers had come from Germany, Estonia, Argentina. They were hooked up with an apartment complex that gave them a huge discount on their rent, and it promised to build out a rehearsal studio for them on the ground level of the apartment building. It seemed like a dream. The first day the dancers arrived, they were met with a photo shoot and a pizza party, but Ashley Benefield was nowhere to be found. They had met her, I believe, at auditions. I think these photos were taken on the day of auditions, and there were several days that Ashley did show up, but she wasn't there on the first day of the official opening of the company, and people found that strange. Doug, however, was there, and he told the dancers that Ashley would be there in Charleston by the end of the week. The end of the week came and went. Ashley never showed up. The dancers and directors at the company did not know this, but Ashley Benefield had moved away to Florida. She and Doug were already having major marital problems, and Ashley was pregnant. Payday came for the dancers. There were no paychecks. The dancers were hustled into a room and told they had to sign NDAs. Signing an NDA is always a red flag. Unless you are working on a major TV production, I don't want to give legal advice, but it's a red flag for me. The director of the company told the dancers that something huge was about to happen, and it was so amazing and groundbreaking, and if they wanted to be a part of it, they had to sign the NDA. For my foreign viewers, an NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It means that you cannot talk about anything that happens as part of the organization. If you do, you can be sued for the rest of your life. So the dancers signed the NDAs. 3 days later, half the remaining company was fired. People were furious. Ashley took to social media and wrote, quote, I publicly disavow my support for American National Ballet Company and its leadership. I have been on personal leave and heard secondhand about the devastation that took place. Yeah, you talk about crazy. This woman, wow. The dancers were left with year-long leases in South Charleston, no income, and no ballet company. And then Doug Benefield disappeared as well. Company choreographer Alexandra Proya later said, I've never seen so many lies, so many people hurt for something that was supposed to be celebrating diversity. The company all along had been a pipe dream. Ashley never even made another appearance in Charleston because you see, behind the scenes, this fairy tale whirlwind / tornado romance was actually a nightmare. Ashley and Doug Benefield are living in a world of chaos, fighting, and family drama. Ashley doesn't get along with Eva, her new husband's teenage daughter, and things only get worse when Eva's best friend Sydney moved in with the family. One night, Ashley found Eva's diary and, in a shocking violation of privacy, read it. That is the kind of person Ashley Benefield is. Take away everything else. She's the kind of person who finds someone else's diary and reads it. She's showing everyone her true character right from the jump. In the diary, Ashley reads that Eva hates her. Ashley and Doug then begin to fight about Eva's diary entries, something neither of them should have been reading. Eva was not 10 or 11 years old. She was almost an adult at this point. I do think younger kids need some monitoring, but when we're talking 17, 18 years old, almost an adult, you should not be reading their private diary. As Doug and Ashley are fighting about Eva on this particular night, Doug, as you do, took out his gun and fired a shot here into the ceiling of the house. You know, just totally normal argument behavior. I keep talking about how sick I am of shitty parents. You just take out your gun and start shooting into the house because, you know, you're mad. That's totally normal. Days later, after this crazy fight and Doug doing this crazy thing, the couple hosted a wedding reception for themselves, pretending to be a happy couple. We are in crazy town here. Ashley and Doug were at each other's throats all the time. There was hardly a day that went by when there wasn't some huge blow up. And then, like I said, Ashley found out she was pregnant. Perfect. Just a perfect situation to bring a child into. I don't know why it's just sticking in my craw lately so much. The more I do this, the more I realize a lot of the cases and the crimes and the devastation that we talk about here are caused by shitty parents. And I am just exhausted with shitty parents. I was not a perfect parent. Far from it. I did a lot of yelling and screaming that I should not have done. I was kind of an authoritarian type parent. We all make mistakes as parents, but we are not all abusive pieces of crap like we see in some of these stories. And if you were that as a parent, apologize. Go to therapy. Pay for the therapy with your kids. If you were a bad parent, own it and make it right. Now, that said, I am also so sick and tired of this whole go no contact culture. I have seen TikToks where I saw a TikTok where two sisters didn't like each other and the grandparents had this sister's kids over and this sister's kids over at the same time. And the one sister didn't know the other kids were going to be there. And so because the grandparents had the grandkids at their own house at the same time, everybody in the comments was like, go no contact immediately. Go no contact immediately. These are your parents. These are the people that love you more than anything in the world, that brought you into the world and that raised you and sacrificed. Going no contact should be the last resort, not your first move. If you've got narcissistic, toxic, crazy parents, yes, I understand why you would want to cut them out of your life, but I see it just way too much now. And here again, we've got people carelessly bringing kids into the world. When Ashley finds out she's pregnant, she decides she wants nothing more to do with Doug. Well, honey, you should have thought of that before you got pregnant because fathers have rights, period. So Ashley packs up and runs away to Florida to stay with her mother. Doug finds out that Ashley is pregnant, and of course, he wants some say in how this pregnancy is going to go, how this is all going to happen, and he wants to be part of the child's life. In September of 2017, Ashley returns to Charleston, not to deal with the absolute mess she's made with the ballet company. No. But to pack up her remaining belongings and leave Doug for good. Ashley just totally abandoned the ballet company. She wasn't going to have anything to do with it. When she leaves Doug's house for the final time, she pens this note that says, all these things and more I have overlooked and lived with for now a year because I love you. But ever since finding out I was pregnant, you have continued to display psychotic, irrational, and unsafe behavior that has left me fearful for my life and safety, as well as that of my unborn child. I came to get only what belongs to me. Do not harass or try to follow me, or I will call the police and have a restraining order against you. I will talk with you only via text starting Tuesday, September 19th. Do not call me or my mom. We will not pick up. Thank you for understanding, Ashley. So I'm pregnant and I'm leaving you with your baby. You're not allowed to talk to me, contact me, or get any information from me. Look, if she was scared, you guys know, I tell women all the time, leave if you've been abused. Leave if you're afraid. If you want to end a relationship with someone, that is absolutely your right. But when there are children involved, other people also have rights. And you don't get to act as though they don't. Now, shooting a gun off in the house is insane. Ashley should have called CPS when that happened. She should have called the police, but she didn't. Later on, when she wants to be left alone, she uses it as ammo. So she wasn't calling the police because she was actually concerned, which she had every right to be. I'm not saying she didn't, but she called CPS later on claiming she was concerned for Eva. I think she was being vindictive, but honestly, if Eva's dad is shooting a gun off in the house, CPS had every right to investigate, and it did. Doug was evaluated by a psychologist who determined he was remorseful, that he knew he had made a terrible mistake, and he was cleared. And I'm going to leave it at that. I was not there. So, when Ashley can't get Doug in trouble by weaponizing CPS and his own child and her unborn child against Doug, she starts making claims that he poisoned his first wife, Renee. She starts telling people that Doug murdered his first wife. Renee had had an autopsy. She died of coronary artery sclerosis. That's when fat and plaque builds up in the arteries of your heart and they become blocked. Ashley's accusations went nowhere because the coroner stood by their report and stated that Renee clearly died of this heart condition. But again, this just shows what a nut job Ashley is. She's a self-involved, narcissistic, not nearly as talented woman as she thinks she is. She's a nightmare. And although I'm not a fan of some of the things that Doug did, I do feel sorry for him. And I feel sorry for Eva. Throughout Ashley's pregnancy, she refused to let Doug see her. He begged and pleaded to be a part of the pregnancy and then the baby's life. But Ashley was not hearing it at all. In March of 2018, Ashley was about 8 months pregnant. It was about 3 weeks before her due date, and suddenly she goes to the hospital. This hospital here, Tampa General. Is she having contractions? No. Is she having complications with the pregnancy? No. She claims at the hospital that Doug has poisoned her. Ashley tells the doctors that her estranged husband has poisoned her, trying to kill her, and so they begin running tests. The doctors cannot find any evidence at all that Ashley has been poisoned. They run all the tests for the usual poisons. They run some more obscure tests. She is making the entire thing up. This is a mean, vindictive person. Mean, vindictive people make things up about people they want to hurt. Later on, the baby is born via C-section. It was a little girl. Doug wasn't even told that his daughter had been born. He found out later on. After the baby, Ashley began filing court documents to keep Doug out of his daughter's life. Ashley claimed that Doug was manipulative, abusive, and controlling, and that she was afraid of him. The courts did not agree, and after a 6-month custody battle, Doug was granted shared custody of the little girl. For a while, it seemed that Ashley had softened a little, and she and Doug started spending time together with the baby. They actually spent most of 2019 together, and people thought they had reconciled. Friends and family were happy to see that the bitterness and anger seemed to have passed, and that even if they didn't end up together in the long run, Doug and Ashley now appeared to be able to co-parent together. But that isn't what was happening at all. In August of 2019, Doug opened his front door to Ashley, who was there to drop the baby off for a visit. Doug noticed that Ashley was wearing a diamond ring on her left hand. He told friends it was obviously an engagement ring, so he hired a private investigator. I guess you could just try asking her, but Ashley, I don't think you'd get a straight answer. The private investigator followed Ashley and dug into her finances and discovered that, yes, Ashley was seeing someone else. So just let's get this straight. She's still married to Doug. She's leading him on to believe there might be chance at reconciliation. All the while she's dating someone else, and she's already engaged to this other man. Doug has finally had it. He gets an attorney and files for divorce. Ashley then decides that she's going to accuse Doug, oh, this is so vile, of sexually and physically abusing the baby. There is a special place in hell for women like this. There is a special place in hell for women who use children to get back at their partners. These are the women that make it difficult for actual victims. These are the women who make people think twice before believing someone who claims they have been abused has been abused. These are the women who make it difficult for women and for men who claim their children are being abused by a partner. This infuriates me because Ashley and women like her are an enemy to women everywhere. They weaponize something that is very real for so many people, domestic violence and abuse towards women and towards children, and they use it for their own sick purposes. And when they lie, it hurts actual victims, and yes, it makes me very, very angry. CPS investigates Ashley's claims, and they find absolutely no evidence of sexual or physical abuse by Doug perpetrated on the baby. So, when Ashley doesn't get her way, what does she do? She again tries to reconcile with Doug. By the summer of 2020, the two were living together again and had decided to pick up and move to Maryland with their daughter and Ashley's mother. Doug's friends warned him, as soon as you get back together with her, she's going to do the same thing to you. One of them even said maybe she's trying to move to Maryland so she can go forum shopping, meaning she was looking for a different court, a different judge. Maybe the rules were different in Maryland to try and get full custody of the baby. Doug told his friend he had actually wondered about that, but he was still going to get back together with her. Doug told Eva that he didn't trust Ashley, but that he was hopeful for change and that he didn't believe in divorce. His religious beliefs didn't allow him to believe in divorce because I guess it's 1542. Ashley's friends knew she had no intentions of reconciling. She was just scheming. But Doug rented a U-Haul and drove to Florida to start moving Ashley's mother to Maryland. They had a court date, a custody hearing scheduled via Zoom on September 30th, where they were going to tell the judge they had reconciled. You need a scorecard or an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of how many times these two fought and then got back together. It's like watching ping pong, only it's ping pong with a baby involved and an older daughter involved. It is really sad. But as sad as it was about to get much, much worse. Doug Benefield is outside Ashley Benefield's mother's house in Florida. This is Ashley's mother. Her name is Alicia Byers. As you can see here in this photo, Doug has pulled the U-Haul truck into the driveway and is packing it up in preparation for the family's move to Maryland. There are varying accounts of what happens next, but Ashley claims that she and Doug got into an argument and that he struck her across the face and then became physically abusive. Ashley claims that fearing for her life, she pulled out her ever-present gun and shot Doug. She then ran to the next door neighbor and he called 911.
The house next door, honey, what's your address? Okay, it's right next door to me. She just came over. Her strange husband attacked her and she says she shot him. Now, we've not gone over there yet. Doctor,
okay, what's his name?
Who?
What is his name?
His name is Doug Benefield.
Okay.
I have not gone over there. I'm not
okay,
to go back.
I don't want you to go over there.
Okay.
Stay on the line just one moment. I'm going to connect you over to the sheriff's dispatch, okay?
Okay.
One moment.
Manatee County paramedics and police arrive at Ashley's mother's house to find Doug Benefield dead, lying on the floor of Ashley's bedroom. He was bleeding from his chest, his arms, and his leg. The cops would later find a stray bullet on the floor and 2 additional bullets lodged in the sheetrock and the studs of the walls. Ashley admitted to shooting Doug, but said it was only in self-defense. She said Doug was beating her. Well, the problem with that story? There were no injuries on Ashley. She had like a little tiny scratch this big on her side that was mostly healed. The CSI team came in and examined the scene. The way Doug was lying on the ground did not indicate that he was in a defensive or combative stance when he was shot. It appeared that he had been shot in cold blood. Ashley Benefield was interrogated and then let go. A month passed, but then on November 4th, 2020, Ashley was arrested. She was arraigned and pled not guilty and posted bond a few weeks later. The trial was postponed for months and then years due to COVID, and then just months ago, it began. On July 23rd, 2024, opening statements were heard, and then the jury heard from John Sant, the neighbor who called in the shooting, the neighbor who called 911. Ashley's pastor organized a group of protesters to stand outside the courtroom, stating they were there to stand up for all domestic violence survivors. Ashley's defense tried to drag the trial out even further, but the judge wasn't having it. He told her attorneys that they'd had years to prepare. He was going forward with the trial. After only 6 days of testimony, Ashley Benefield was found guilty of manslaughter by the jury of her peers. She faces up to 30 years in prison. Sentencing was initially set for last week, October 22nd, but it was delayed. It has been rescheduled for December 3rd, and I will bring you an update when we find out what Ashley's sentence will be. I want to send lots and lots of love to Eva. You've lost your mom and you've lost your dad, and I know I speak for everyone in the Dark Hearts community when I say we are so sorry for what you have been through. We all hope you're doing well and that you can heal in the best way you know how. As a mom, if I could could give one piece of advice, it would be try and live your best life. That's what your mom and dad would want for you. I dug around and tried to find out where the baby is, and I found all kinds of different answers, but I couldn't verify any of them. So I'm just going to say for now, I do not know where the baby is or who has custody of the baby. I hope and assume she's being taken good care of and that she is loved. This is a sad story all the way around. Ashley Benefield has hurt a lot of people, from the ballet dancers and company directors to Eva and her own child, but she killed Doug Benefield, and that's what matters most. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to support me. I'm kind of on my last push to stay here on YouTube. I've got to see a lot of growth if I'm going to continue after the first of the year. Share the channel, drop the name of the channel in the comments on other channels if you want. I've got 2 podcasts. This one is Dining with Death. It's an archive of the audio taken from old videos posted here to YouTube. But this is the current podcast, and I post new episodes every Monday and every Wednesday. There are some podcast exclusives, stories you will not see here on YouTube. Both podcasts are on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. I want to thank my patrons. Some of you give a few dollars a month to help me keep the episodes coming, and that is greatly appreciated. And you know you can become a part of our fundraiser. There's a short little video here on my channel just called Fundraiser. You can watch it and find out all the ways you can donate. We are trying to solve some cold cases. I want to thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.